Where was I supposed to start from? Don't worry about it, Ty. You'll cut this together later.
We'll figure it out.
Who cares? I don't care. He doesn't care.
I care, though.
Listen, you forgot the equipment. I came late. You saved my butt. She was here 1 minute late. You saved her butt. John comes out and says, hey, I'm sorry, you'll be on time. Don't worry, because Ty forgot all the equipment.
All of it.
And I said, why would he forget the equipment? Why? When I'm going to come on and do my son's podcast with Natalie, I've been looking forward to it. Why would he forget? John said, because he loved your show so much that he forgot. I just wanted to drop that in there on you, okay? Because I know you wouldn't do it, but you made my night. Ty came to the show at the South Point, and he said some of the nicest things. When a young guy like you says that to a performer who's been doing this 60 years, it goes right to the heart. Thank you, Ty.
What did he say?
There you go.
It's true.
What did he say?
Oh man,
if you followed him on Instagram, you'd know.
He
I
called
follow
me.
him
He
on
called my
Instagram.
performance a precisioned. I love that word. A precisioned, which is the furthest I am from anything, is precision. But he, for some reason, saw me as a precisioned entertainer, a master on the stage. I'm repeating this for a reason, so that you all can hear it. And he said all this stuff to me. And John sends me your
The screenshots. I took screenshots of it.
And he says all this to me. I got on the phone with him. I was really humbled by that, by the way. I'm not kidding you.
Ty.
It means a lot. It means a lot.
How's that for a warm open?
I
Huh?
don't even
You
have
like that?
words. I don't have words.
You like that?
I was just telling the wife before I left here, like.
You know, we did your gender reveal
You
on
told
the
me
show.
that too.
Now you're
That's
getting
the first
shout
thing he
outs
said
from
to
Dad.
me.
It's
He said,
it's
"He
becoming the
touched my
Ty
face."
Harris show, you know?
I'm behind the camera.
And you're not even in front of the camera. And
Well,
it's
why don't
like
you come
all
in the
about
front
you,
so they can
you
see what
know?
we're talking about?
I love it. Come around.
Come on.
Come around.
I mean, they got to see.
And show
Those-
off your new
yeah.
They got to
hat.
see how.
Look at him.
What,
There
what
he
a-
is.
And you got him a
There he
hat.
is.
I mean, this is a
And
big.
look at this. Look
There
at
he
this
is.
gift.
I got him a hat.
Got him a hat and everything.
Matching hats. You guys
Yeah,
are like
man.
bonded
Turn
now.
around.
Yeah.
Matching hats.
Oh
Look at
yeah,
this.
that's my
I gotta
man.
imagine how
You're the black Tony Orlando.
Precision photographer. A black Tony.
Actually, he's Puerto Rican, you know.
Oh, Borican.
Yeah.
¿Tú
Yes.
hablas español también?
Yes.
No kidding.
Liar.
You do? I know you spoke Spanish.
Like, not as much.
Okay.
Yeah, but I understood all of that.
Okay.
Well, there
All
you
right.
go.
So are you all Puerto Rican?
Half and half.
What's the other half? African American, Puerto Rican.
There you go.
Perfect comedy, soulful dude, man.
Yeah, he can sing. He's got chops. I'm not kidding. Maybe we just need to turn this into your show.
Don't do that.
Wait,
You
you
know?
sing? Why am I just learning?
Yes, he sings. Yeah.
This whole time?
But hey, enough about him.
Anyway,
Let's talk
bye.
about
I
him.
gotta ask you a question.
What?
Bye.
Tell me.
This is the first time I'm doing your podcast.
Yep.
I think we did a rehearsal.
Well, you did Action Junkeez up in the
A
hotel
long
room
time
with
when
me
you
and
first
Jake.
started.
Yeah,
How many years back?
2.
2 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never asked you this then. What's it like doing it? You're interviewing your pops. What is?
Yeah.
What goes through your head? when
Yeah,
you-
it's
Natalie, I'm going to ask you the same thing.
I don't know.
Because you weren't born yet.
I don't know if weird is the right word. So it's like, you know, I had Jerry Royce on, as you know, on
And a
Action
great show.
Junkeez.
That was a
And
great show.
thank you. And you know, I told the story. Like I remember when I remember being in Tommy's dressing room with you. You know, back in the Dodger locker room. Tommy had this big dressing room, and Jerry Royce. I'm like 9 or 10 years old, and Jerry Royce was a star pitcher for the team back then. And he's all of like 6'6", 6'7", whatever. He's really tall. And I'm sitting on this couch, and he's 6'6", and it's nothing for it's the locker room, so it's nothing for those guys. Like they literally take a shower and they come in and like they're talking about the game naked.
Yeah.
Like, you know, hey Tommy, sorry about the 4th inning, you know, whatever. And if I'm, you know, a little kid,
You
I'm sitting on a
lucky-
couch
you
and there's a guy
lucky man.
there's a guy 6'6" next to me. You know.
So eye level?
Yeah.
But who was next to him? That was scary. Who was next to him naked? Tommy
Tommy,
Lasorda.
yeah.
Now that's a sight to behold. Let me
Yeah.
tell you. And I said to Tommy, I'll never forget this. Maybe you don't remember. I said, Tommy, this is going to affect my son for the rest
I remember.
of his
You're like,
life.
can't you put something on? Yeah. So to have, and then fast forward, whatever, 40 years, that hurts, and have Jerry on the show was like, just, like, you can't get your head wrapped around it, you know? And like,
What did he say about standing there like that? What did he
yeah, he laughed. He just laughed, you know. But when I think of like Vegas, you know, like this was definitely home away from home. You know, I mean, I can remember being here as young as like maybe 5 or 6 years old.
All your life.
Yeah, like Riviera. You know, I remember looking from the window, I could see Circus across the street from Riviera, and I was like, oh my God, I want to go in there.
I never heard any of that. What are the memories? You look out, you think of Riviera, you think of Circus.
Yeah.
And then what? What comes up next?
Like all the backstage stuff was always exciting to me. Like all of the, you know, like you get like, so you back then, I don't know if you still use it, but you used to wear, cologne wise, you used to wear, it was like super cheap, but it smelled so good on you. Jovan
I use
Musk.
it to this day. To this
Do
day,
you?
I admit it. I use it to this day. It cost $9 at Walgreens. And every time I put it on, females go, what are you wearing?
Seriously,
it smells so good.
And like so, like when I think of my dad when I was little, like I think of being in his dressing room, and Vanessa always likes the fact that when we go out of town, we go to a hotel. I lay out on a white towel all of my stuff, and that's because you had all your stuff.
Yep. Wow.
Laid out on a white towel.
Made an imprint. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. And so
that it would all be nice and neat and clean.
Like your cologne, your
brushes,
brushes,
the cologne, the toothbrush,
everything.
the hair gel, whatever.
How long is that towel though?
It's just a small,
It's a small little towel?
Yeah. And I would lay it all out, and that's like those. Isn't that weird? Those are the things that are in my mind, and like just the backstage, like you getting ready.
Vanessa's thanking you. She's
Yeah,
saying,
like
you know, Natalie,
you.
this is really this is interesting. I'm hearing this for the first time.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I didn't know what was going through that little boy's head.
Yeah.
You know, now you're not a little boy anymore.
Right.
But you'll always be a little boy to me. I hate to tell you that.
Yeah.
Probably hate hearing that. Truth of the matter is, you're my son forever. But what? So when I was on stage, was that like, oh, Daddy does that for a living? That's his job? Or like, wow, he stinks? Or what?
No, it was
wow,
like,
he's
wow,
good?
it was just like, oh, that's what you do. But like I knew you were really good at it because like you could just, even as a little kid, like I liked it, you know. But the audience reaction was crazy, especially back then. Like, you know, I mean, it's still crazy, really, but like.
The biggest thrill I got from you being in the audience, I'll be honest, I don't think I ever told you this, Natalie, I played Broadway in a show called Barnum, The Life Story of P.T. Barnum. And it was an award-winning show that won a Grammy.
With Glenn Close,
Tony.
you did it with Glenn Close.
Glenn Close was my co-star.
Oh, wow.
And John came to see that show. And I think that show affected you more than anything I'd ever done up to that point.
Yeah.
Because he came out of that going, Dad, wow, you walked the wire in this show? And
You walked a tightrope.
I walked a
Like
tightrope.
20 feet off the ground. I don't even know how many feet up.
12 feet.
12
But-
feet, but
but
looks
your
like
eyes,
20.
But
yeah.
your eyes,
Wow.
if you're 6 feet
did you
tall.
have a harness on?
Huh?
No.
No.
Ooh.
And you walked 33
impressive.
feet across.
And aren't you singing while you're walking? Or?
And I did a split on this.
Right.
I did a split. Just so you know, I used to be able to do a split, okay? On a wire, guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
If I did that now, I'd be dead.
Yeah.
But truthfully, I did. And John came to see the
That's
show,
very
and I remember
impressive.
all he kept saying was, now this is something. Broadway affected him.
Yeah. And then the crowd's reaction in Broadway is so unlike any other place.
Well, you're a dancer,
I am a dancer.
and so Broadway could be a big part of your life, right? I mean,
Not necessarily. It's more of a triple threat. You have to be able to sing and act. And I mean, I can act. I don't think I can't sing for the
Can't
life of
sing?
me. Mm-mm.
No?
I can sing. It just doesn't sound good. No one's gonna.
but you wanted to
people
be
are
a
gonna walk
dancer,
out.
Natalie, from you're a little girl.
I
right?
was a gymnast before a dancer,
There
and
you
then
go.
I lost the love for gymnastics. While I was in gymnastics, we trained in dance to do the
Did
floor
you see
routines and the
this
balance
recent
beams.
girl, gymnastic girl, do a triple?
No.
A triple?
I didn't see it.
Off what? Off the.
It's the first time anyone's done a triple 4 times. 4 times.
A quadruple, I guess.
But like on the
Off
floor?
the walking beam?
Off the beam.
Off the beam.
Wow.
And then she also did it off the floor. You know the dance thing
Yeah.
to do across the floor?
Uh-huh.
And all the stances and all that?
Yeah.
She did it then too. Just
I need to
came
see
up.
this.
You gotta Google that. I don't
Okay,
know
I'm
her
gonna
name.
Google it.
But it's amazing.
I'm gonna Google it. Yeah. No, Broadway is out of my reach, especially at my age. Should have started young, but,
But
it's okay.
that's the beginning of being a dancer.
right.
And you know, dancers, you know, Sammy Davis Jr., who was a great entertainer in his day, long before you were born. But Sammy was considered the greatest entertainer of all time. And he used to say, the dancers in Vegas never got their respect and due.
I
They're the
agree.
hardest workers.
To this day.
They're the hardest workers. They get the least amount of, billboarding. People don't know their names. They come off the stage, they're sweating. They make you look good, the performer. They're stretching for 2 hours before the show, like athletes. And really, but I think the dancer now is finally, I think Michael Jackson had a lot to do with bringing dancing into a place that the average person realizes is a stellar job to do.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Don't you think he did that?
Yeah, I agree. I think just all of the singers that became dancers and did more pop related and then had dancers copy their movements and then toured,
But he was the first.
Gave a name for the dancers, yeah.
Yeah, he was the
Opposed
first.
to just a singer
And then your
dancers
friend
in the
J-Lo,
background.
I saw her in
I love
Vegas.
her.
And I'm going to talk to her about you, Natalie.
love
I'm going to
her.
say, J-Lo, I know a dancer that's got to be in your show.
I agree.
But just remind J-Lo that she's booked on Thursdays, okay? I'm
Thursday.
J-Lo,
sorry.
if you
We gotta
if you're
work
watching
around
Thursday.
it. We gotta
J-Lo,
work
if
around
you're
it.
watching this podcast or listening on John Orlando's podcast with Natalie,
Yes.
I suggest that you listen carefully to
Resume
me.
right here. Resume.
From one Puerto Rican to another, no, two Puerto Ricans to another, Natalie is a killer dancer.
Thank you.
Yay.
I like it.
Cheers. I'll take it.
I give you celebrity testimonials here,
goodness.
okay?
That is going
That's
on
what
my
I bring to the
resume.
table for you. But yeah, growing up, it was crazy. Like I remember so many things like that, like how cool I thought it was, like when your name was on the marquee. The marquees are different now too. Like it doesn't, like Vegas.
'Cause they're
I don't
built-
know.
they flash.
There's so many hotels now. Where like back then, you
Screen
had
and screens, all these movies.
right now there's
Right.
screens. Like back then, it was like that old school marquee, and it was that like old showbiz, like
They were
Tony
special.
Orlando, like musical director, Reg Powell,
They
and
were special.
and you had Riv, you had the Hilton, you had the Sands, you had Caesars, and I want to say that's it, right?
Desert Inn,
Desert Inn,
Right.
right.
the
But-
Hilton,
right, the Hilton. But like
That's
now
it.
it's up and right. There was no Mirage, there was no Treasure Island, there was no Planet Hollywood, there was no Bellagio, there was no Cosmo. So Vegas was so different too.
And those of you who live in Vegas know the street McLeod. If you took Flamingo to McLeod, one step beyond McLeod was literally all desert.
Yeah.
There was no homes. Now I'm talking 1970s, all right? You go past McLeod now, you can go on and on
Right.
and on and on and on. So,
Is it like I remember another thing I think about is I remember I don't know how old I was. We were sitting maybe in the Hilton up in that big suite you used to get, like the Elvis suite or
that was
whatever,
sweet. Yeah,
right?
That was a suite, yeah.
And
And we would all get that same suite. Yeah.
and I remember you saying something like back then you were like, well, this had to be like maybe like late 80s maybe. And I remember you saying like someday
middle 80s.
Okay.
84.
You were like Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, Elton John, Boyz II Men.
You
They'll
remember
all
that?
be playing here someday, and it's going to be harder for people like me. And I remember thinking,
You said that?
yeah,
I
and I remember
swear.
thinking,
I can't
and
believe
then
you
also
remember
said,
that.
You also said, or they're going to go to like big production shows, like big magic shows. There was no Cirque du Soleil yet, but that's where you were headed in your head.
Yep.
And I remember thinking, which I've done many times with, you've said showbiz related, whether it's advice, whatever, I think, he's crazy. And then years later,
Here we are.
he's correct.
Well, there was a guy in town, Jono. There was a guy, Natalie, who wrote for the Review Journal. When he did an interview with me while I was working in Branson, Missouri, about Las Vegas. And I said to him, trust me, everybody you think that won't work Vegas, because remember something, when I worked Vegas in the 70s, if you turned on Saturday Night Live, they were making fun of Vegas. It was not cool to be in Vegas.
Oh, it's like where you go to
Right.
die, where your career ends
Right.
type of thing.
And that's
No,
why
it was
I thought he was
It
crazy.
was like, oh, Vegas, that's where they go with brown shoes and white socks.
Right.
Oh, yeah, it was like corny to be in Vegas.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So it was like not a cool thing.
There were like two food groups of entertainers, at least my impression back then was there was the people in your class, right? There was like the you, Paul Anka,
Yeah,
Tom Jones, Engelbert, like those guys that you were in a class of your own as respected entertainers, and then there was like Elvis impersonators and.
But there was also the classic rock bands would say, we ain't playing Vegas.
Right, that's what I mean.
That's for bubblegum singers like
Vegas,
Tony Orlando.
Right.
We ain't going to play no Vegas. They ain't hip enough.
Right, it wasn't cool to play here.
And I told that reporter, you wait and see. Elton John will be headlining in Vegas. He laughed at me. Oh, you're kidding. Now the day that Elton opens, to his credit, this writer wrote a whole article about that interview I did where he thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
And Paul McCartney worked here, Elton John worked here, they all of them.
List goes on
Rod
and
Stewart,
on,
all the ones that would say, I ain't playing Vegas.
Now they all want residencies.
Of course.
To be honest with you, the only one who wanted to play Vegas out of that crew of guys was John Lennon.
Really?
He was the only one who said, oh, someday I want to play Vegas.
Wow.
It was interesting that he was the only one. Everybody else was going, you're kidding me, I won't play that town. And now, it's completely the other way.
Completely turned around.
Back in the day, how many weeks did you work out here in a year?
I worked 24 weeks a year, but I
It's
worked
like half the year.
Pretty much
But I
half the year.
worked
Wow.
3 shows a night, 7 days a week.
Three shows a night?
3 shows a night,
Woo.
7, 10, midnight. 3 shows in the main room, not in the lounge, in the main room. From all week, 7 days, 7 days, 7 days. So 20 some odd days, 21 days of no days off, 3 shows a night.
Wow.
Wow.
That is.
That's what we were working here.
Woo.
And
And that was
7 o'clock-
Sinatra,
Right.
Sammy Davis, the Rat Pack, all of us.
I wish we had those midnight shows again.
I would love
I
midnight
would love
shows.
midnight shows in Las Vegas.
Do you remember the first time you played here? Where were you? Was that
I worked the
Sahara?
lounge. The first time I worked here was in the lounge at the Hilton, Las Vegas Hilton, and I shared the gig with a young singer named Kenny Rogers. So I would go on at 6 o'clock at night, do my set, then Kenny would come on, do his set, and then I would come on with the girls, with Dawn, then he would come on, and we'd do this all the way till 6 in the morning
And this was in the lounge.
in the lounge.
And you
But the
had
lounge,
a hit yet?
yeah, we had
You
Knock
had
3 Times
you had Knock
Candida.
3 times.
Yeah, Knock
Wow,
Yellow Ribbon.
okay.
And Elvis was in the main room. And Kenny and I were in the lounge. And Lee Greenwood also was in the lounge with us. And we would work this 12 hours. Now, I'll never forget, this is the truth, John. Now, you know what it is when the sun comes up and you've been up all night? It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Right? So, 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm on stage and the sun's coming up and I'm ready to just get to bed. And I have to do a show. In a room, that lounge held 300 people. That was big for a lounge.
Sure.
And I'm sitting, and I get on stage, and there's one guy in the audience at 6 o'clock in the morning. One guy. And what is he doing? He's laying down on his table like this. So I look at the maitre d' and I go, he goes, drunk.
Right.
So I figured I may as well have fun with this. So I sat at the table and I sang the whole show to this drunk, one guy. I just sat next to him. And I did the whole show and I'm sitting there and I'm doing the show. Well, the word got out that I only had one person in the lounge that night. The next night, I'm on stage and I see this kind of white in the corner of my eye come out. And it's Elvis Presley, and he walks behind me, but he doesn't know that the other side of the stage, there's no exit. It's the bar, so he couldn't leave. So he comes in, and I see him stop and go, oh my God, what now? Then he turns around, and he stops. He comes to me, and he does the famous, thank you very much, and he walks off the stage.
During the set.
During the set. Well. Everybody went, you do know who that was, everybody, right? Yeah, oh my God, yeah, Elvis Presley was, every night after that, up until 6 in the morning, I had a packed house because the word got out was that Elvis does it all the time. And so they would come in packed house, and that's when I became friends with Elvis. And Sammy Shore, who recently passed away, was his opening act. So it's crazy, but that's how I got to meet Elvis Presley. He came, I said, why did you do that? He said, I heard that you were out there working to one guy. He said, what you didn't know, Tony, was the one guy was actually one of the waiters. You had nobody in your audience.
No. Now, Elvis publicly, one of your first songs was one of his favorites. It was in his jukebox or something, right?
Yeah, it was.
What an honor.
He, when I was 16 years old, I had a #1 record. That's 1961. And it was called Halfway to Paradise. So I get this little note. Your mother will tell you this is true. I get this little note because your mother worked for Elvis.
Right.
And she was the head of his publishing company. So I get this note. It says, Dear Tony, I put Halfway to Paradise in my jukebox, signed Elvis. I kept it. I never believed it. I didn't know him at the time. So all these years go by, from 61 to 1973, 72. That night when I meet Elvis, I said, can I ask you a question? Did you ever hear a song called Halfway to Paradise? He goes, it's in my jukebox. I sent you a note. Did you ever get it? I almost passed out. I said, wait a minute. That really was true? He goes, no, that really is true. I said, oh my God, Elvis. I said, I don't know where that note is. I said, I didn't believe it was you.
No, you don't have it still?
Maybe your mom has it.
Oh, no.
I don't know.
She was always someone to store stuff like that.
Yeah.
But no, really,
There's a newspaper article though somewhere. I don't know if you sent it to me. Someone once sent it to me that it actually says that it was like it was an interview from Elvis, and they asked him or something like favorite songs in your jukebox or something like that.
And 3 of his guys that wrote books, Red, and those, they all wrote that in the book.
Right.
He had. Funny enough, in that article that you're talking about, when they interviewed him, they asked him who he listens to. I'll cut it out so you know I'm not lying. Okay, I have it home. That I didn't lose. And he says he listened to a guy named Roy Hamilton, which you guys would not know. But if I told you to listen to Roy Hamilton's song called "Don't Let Go," which I recorded too.
Oh.
I
never knew that was a remake until just
now.
Right.
So Roy actually cut,
Things you learn
and he would sing it like this: "Hear that whistle, it's 10 o'clock. Don't let go." Sounding like Elvis.
Yep.
So Elvis would listen to Roy Hamilton. In fact, when Roy Hamilton passed away, Elvis was at his bedside. So Roy Hamilton was one. Tom Jones was one of his favorite singers. Brooke Benton, another name you wouldn't remember, was one of his favorites. Rainy Night in Georgia, that was his big hit. And then my name. And I said, wait a minute. I'm in the list of Elvis's favorite singers. And so I asked Priscilla, who we're friends with. I said, Priscilla, did somebody just say that because they know we're friends? And no, he would listen to your stuff all the time. I said, I can retire now.
Crazy. It's so much history.
I know.
Well, it's been a great journey. Jono, I'll tell you something. I never saw high school. I'm in show business 60 years. My palate has tasted the foods of 40 countries. I've worked for 8 presidents of the United States. I've sold somewhere between 150 to 175 million records. I had my own network television show when there was only 3 networks, CBS. I was part of a happening where we were the first multiracial group to have a prime time show, the Tony Orlando and Dawn Show. I worked Broadway. I've won 3 American Music Awards. I've been nominated for a Grammy 5 times. I won the People's Choice Awards 3 times.
And the first People's Choice Award for
very
male
first
entertainer.
one.
How about
First one
that?
ever?
How about that I know?
Yeah. So when you look at this ride, and it is that's what it feels like, a ride. All the points of light this shouldn't have happened to me. And I really believe that I just been touched by an angel. I really believe God gave me this path. Maybe I did something wonderful with my sister who was mentally retarded and cerebral palsied, and she was raised by my hands. Maybe God blessed me for that, because I'm not the greatest dancer in the world, for sure. I'm not the greatest singer in the world, for sure. I'm no great comedian, for sure. I'm not the greatest actor in the world, for sure. I would say just above mediocre on all those points, and yet this is my 60th year in this business. I've just been blessed and lucky, really. And that blessing was transposed onto you, because you grew up in the locker room of the Dodgers. You grew up in a mansion in Brentwood, 10,000 square foot home, that to you, it was your house, your home, not some mansion. It was where you lived with your cats.
Poor thing.
You know?
You had cats back then,
what
too.
What a terrible way to grow up.
Yeah, you
Poor
know,
thing.
so you experienced the same blessing. God had his hand on you too, because whatever happened to me was transposed right onto you. And your mother did a great job in raising you, because I wasn't there. I mean, you got to give the credit to her and you for having the self-respect that you had for yourself, because, you know, I was on the road or trying to make it or in the studio more than I was home.
It's weird. I don't feel like that, though. It's weird that I've heard you say that to me before. Like,
Yeah.
But when I think of me growing up, I don't ever think of, like, I always think of it. Everything I relate to in life, I relate to sports, whether it's Dodger games or times of year or times of my life or whatever, or like, so Little League games. Like, I feel like he was at every single Little League game. Like, maybe you missed a handful over
I never missed
whatever
them.
10 years or whatever, but you know what I mean? Like, so in my brain, like, I know you were on the road like 24 weeks, 26 weeks, whatever it is.
Just remember something, the game was an hour, 2 hours long.
Right.
It's a full day.
Right, but in my head, like the stuff that like mattered as a kid, you were always there.
Well, I hope.
Right? Birthdays,
Thank
Little
you
League
for saying
games,
that.
like
Wow,
all that
that's
stuff,
wonderful.
like you were there. So I don't ever
That's
feel
rare.
like, even when you were doing the TV show, those were like 18-hour days, right?
I never saw you.
But I don't think of, I don't
I'll
remember
tell you
it
the
like
funniest
Still
thing
there,
John
yeah.
ever did
one way or
when it comes
another.
to me and my TV show and movies. This is the God's truth. I do a movie called 300 Miles for Stephanie for television.
I know exactly what he's going to say.
And I think, okay, so the movie came out
80.
1980, so
Yeah,
how old?
10.
You were
Gonna be 10, yeah.
You were going to be 10. I thought of you even younger than that.
Yeah.
Okay, you were 10 years old. And I said, okay, we had this big screen TV in this house before anybody had big screen TV. And I said, okay, John, we're going to watch Daddy's movie. Oh, yeah, we're going to watch this movie, my first movie. Yeah, oh, boy. Now we got the movie on. There's a scene where I kissed the girl. John got pissed. John got off my lap and said, don't you ever do that to my mother again. Don't you ever do that to her. That's terrible what you did there, Daddy. Don't you do I said, John, it's a movie. I don't care. But that was horrible what you had to, look at what you had to put Mom through. Blah, 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 blah. He ran the riot act on me. Tell me I'm lying.
You are not lying.
And how old are you?
He kicked
9
my
or 10.
ass.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
verbally kicked
Yeah.
my ass
Yeah.
for sure.
That's funny.
Yeah. That's not what I thought you were
Good
going to say.
boy. Stand
I
up.
thought you were going to say when you were filming that, you came home. I don't think I knew that you were doing a movie. Like, you came home. I was eating dinner. I remember being in the kitchen. But in the movie, he shaves the mustache off. And so you walked into the house, and I was like,
And I looked like you.
I was like, who's that? Like, I didn't even know who that was. And he was like, it's
Always-
me.
always had a
Yeah.
mustache.
Listen, I did a movie called The Rosemary Clooney Story. And the lead woman was Sandra Locke. She was Clint Eastwood's woman.
And Rosemary Clooney, just for your knowledge, is George Clooney's aunt.
Okay.
Okay.
Right, and she was a
Now we
famous,
can
and she
continue.
was a
And
famous,
for everybody else.
and Rosemary Clooney was a famous big singer, jazz singer, in the 40s and 50s. So, what's my point? lost my point.
Mustache.
Mustache.
We're talking about mustache.
So I had to shave off my mustache, so I had to put on a phony one later on in the movie. But in the first part of the movie, I had no mustache. And I was literally 171 pounds. I had a 29 waist, okay? And I look
I
at
don't even think I have a 20.
I look at the photo now. It's true. I had a 29 waist. I look at the photo now. I'll show it to you, Vanessa. I'll show it to you, Natalie. Everybody that sees it go, oh my God, you look like John. It was the only time where I could say, oh yeah, I look just like John. I was thin enough and the same features.
And when you had a 29 waist and you were 171 pounds, didn't you get a letter from the network
Yeah, I
saying
did.
you were too fat?
I can't believe you remember that. I actually got a letter.
Well,
You know, I
body
always,
shaming in the 70s was a thing. How
My
about
mind
that?
is, they told you?
you know what happened? I have,
Wow.
if I weighed 170, I still had a double chin on television. I always had this. You can look at pictures of me when I'm, 25 years old, like this, and I always had this. So on cameras, Natalie,
Yeah.
you gain weight,
They do.
especially
Yeah,
television.
5 pounds.
Easy,
Or
right?
more.
So I get a call from the president of the company, CBS. He says, Tony, I got to talk to you. It says to me, I'm sending a note down with Bob Tamplin, my vice president. I look, I says, you're too fat, lose weight.
I can't believe
Now,
that.
what he forgets is, he didn't know, is I had already lost 100 pounds. Weight was always an albatross on my back. I always fought weight.
Wait, you lost 100 pounds?
Prior
the
to the
TV
Before
TV
the
show.
TV show.
Yeah.
I lost 100
For
pounds.
the TV show.
For my
Kinda.
career,
For your
basically.
career, okay.
Yeah. And prior to that, I was
to hear that?
I was vice president of CBS. I was running the music division for Clive Davis at CBS for 4 years. So I was behind the desk. And I got bigger and bigger like I
Makes
am
sense.
now.
That's when you
Then-
were 24, right? You were
I
like
was,
24?
I was 23,
Okay.
just 23. By the time I got to do the television show, which was 1973, once I had Candida, our first million seller, I went to Dr. Atkins himself, and I went on that protein diet that's so famous today. He put me on it and I lost 100 pounds. So when I got this note, I'm going, wait a minute. I've lost 100 pounds, and I'm getting a letter saying, you're too fat, what do I do now?
I'd be devastated.
But there's nothing more I could do. I could never get lower than that,
Right.
no matter what,
People still loved you, so regardless.
But I look
Still
at
got
pictures
views.
of me now, and I go, holy mackerel. I was looking good, Natalie. Let me tell you something. You'd be looking at me in those days.
Yeah?
Natalie. Oh, yeah.
Bell bottoms and everything?
Oh,
Bell bottoms,
yeah.
platform
Bell
shoes.
bottoms.
Oh, now we're talking.
And
The
everything,
hair,
everything,
yeah.
the hair, the whole bit, the high heels.
Matter of
everything.
fact, Ty, insert a
Yeah,
photo
please.
of Tony Orlando from like the 70s right there.
You already got
Okay,
it?
all right.
Oh,
yeah.
yes. I
So
cannot
when
wait.
you have that show, when that show first went on the air, you were like 28, right? The TV show? Are you like in your head, like I'm still waiting for that, and you probably are too, like that I've arrived moment,
Like that break.
right? Like when you...
You arrived a long time ago.
Eh,
You just don't
it's-
But
understand.
you know what I always tell people?
Your
You have
opinion
to-
of arriving is money. My
Right.
opinion of arriving is not money. My opinion of arriving is a class guy who doesn't have an enemy on the planet, who is really a kind-hearted, smart, great salesman, who loves family and stays in touch with his friends. That's a success. Everything else is bullshit, John.
I agree with him. And the thing is, I tell myself to have to remind myself, if I write down all the shows and gigs and places I've been, the list is this long. It's impressive. I have to remind myself, I've done a lot already. So maybe you don't feel like it, but you
Right.
just have to remind yourself, you've
No,
done a
'cause
lot
here's-
already. You've done.
Remember what he had to, for a young guy who had to grow up seeing this father become this thing.
Poor me.
He's kept his head together pretty good, because you know what? He never showed jealousy. He always gave the love up to his pops. He always said, "You're great, Dad," and my father's great. He was always proud of me. That was the saving factor. If he wasn't able to be that kind of human being, he'd be a mess.
Or
like a lot of
jealousy or
those,
resentment.
like a lot of those kids were,
Yeah.
from people who made it in show business. But in my opinion, you've already made it. What happened to me is as rare as, as a rainbow coming up in this building right now.
Right.
It doesn't happen, and it should never be as a comparison. What makes great success is the kind of man you are, the kind of human being you are, the way you treat Vanessa with respect, and you give her nothing but accolade, but at the same time you maintain your own self. And to me, you're hard to find. She's lucky to have you.
Yeah, remember that,
It's
okay?
on camera.
No, I mean, I know she
She's
knows
right
that.
there, but I
know
have to
she
say
knows
it,
that
I think.
because that's what
Yeah.
Vanessa's about. Vanessa's
But-
about that. So,
Thank you.
So it's the truth. So your image of making it, waiting for that moment. But to answer your question about 28, what went through my mind?
Yeah,
There was no connection.
really?
It only happened retrospectively. So now when I look back, I go,
Wow.
wait a minute, I did that? But while I was doing it, I was just doing it.
Right. You're in the moment.
You're just in it. Like, so like when you turn on the radio and they're playing your song top of the hour and it's like, and the number one is
Oh
Can't Be
no,
Enough,
no,
Nothing
no, no!
Tons.
I'd be in the car going, "Holy shit,
Okay.
I'm number one," but I wouldn't dwell on it. It was one.
Is that because you have to, like, now you're in this, it's almost like you're a hamster on the wheel,
You know
right?
what
Like
helped me? You know what helped me? I had a book given to me. I don't remember who gave it to me. I must have been 15 years old. It's still out there. It's called Notes to Myself. The author is Hugh Prather. That was his name. The book sold 5 million copies to college students. It's this thick, little tiny book.
Yep.
And in it, he writes a line I never forgot. Fame isn't really fame at all. It only appears that way from a distance. So now what does that mean? You put my name up on the marquee, okay? Person that doesn't know me walks down the street and goes, "Ah, Tony Orlando's working here. Wow, look, Tony Orlando's here," right? Some fan. John walks up to that same marquee and goes, "Oh yeah, my dad's here."
True.
It only appears that way from the distance of the person that doesn't know me. But the person living in the house, did you take out the garbage? Well, it's really something that happens in other people. It's perception, not reality. It's like a mirage. It really isn't there. Fame really isn't there. You're still the same human being. You're still the same person. But all the stuff that goes with so-called fame, people get caught up in it. But if you rape the fame, if you remove the clothing of fame, it's bullshit. It comes down to being a good person, having a good home, having great kids, and having a good dinner once in a while. I mean, that's really it. That's really it. Everything else, all the young people here who think they're going to stay young and beautiful, that ends. They become fat and old. It's
Can't
automatic. It's automatic.
I can't wait either.
And if they don't become
I'll have to
fat
put
and
makeup
old,
on my face.
sometimes they look too young for their own good when they reach that age. They almost look like, why are you working so hard to be looking an age that you're not? That's a turnoff. There's nothing graceful about that. More graceful to have a woman meet up with her age and accept it. There's beauty in that.
Right.
So the truth of the matter is, the very simplest things that make a person great, in my opinion, and this is not just your father talking, I'm talking about a man to man, you have already reached.
Thank
because you've
really
never
nice.
you've never embarrassed your family, you've never been an asshole, you've never done anything to hurt anybody. If you have, it was unintentional. You're trying to make it in the business, and sometimes you say things and do things you shouldn't do. That goes for everybody. So I say this on your podcast because long time from now, when I'm long gone, you could play it again and hear that you're my idol. I respect you for the man that you are, and that's the truth. That's the truth.
Thank you.
I'm not just saying that, but I'm one of the fortunate fathers that knows that. A lot of fathers don't reach that plateau. with their kids. And the same with my daughter Jenny. My daughter Jenny she's ready for sainthood. I mean, she's one of the kindest, most wonderful girls you'll ever want to meet. No harm, no hate, loves her brother and idolizes her brother. So, and is probably smarter than 99% of the people I meet, but she doesn't know it. If there's a fault in Jenny, she doesn't realize how capable she really is.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, good Jenny.
Yeah, she does, and I tell her that all the time. But I'm very fortunate in that respect that I have 2 kids that are my friends that have never really given me not one day of pain or embarrassment, or they've been class all the way. So, those of you at home listening to this podcast, if you were in my shoes and you're doing your son's podcast for the first time, I didn't mean to say all of this. Even,
hey, I'll take it.
It just came out. But no, man, I
literally have this forever too.
I'll have more pictures with quotes from him on it now. You have for Instagram. You have no idea what I'm going to do with all this footage.
But you know what's else, Vanessa and Natalie? We're sitting here with friends. John never worked for a company. Now, think of that. He's 150 years old, and he's never worked for a company.
You look great.
Right? And yet, I see, what are you driving? He's driving a better car than me. Then I go to his apartment in L.A. Where you living? He's living in a better place than me. I go, wait a minute. You don't work for a company? You don't what? No, it's just his ability to create business, to create tumult, as they say. And he's been his own man. I got to respect him for that,
Thank you. Did you?
And even my man over there, he's agreeing with me.
Yeah.
My dad did something similar to this at Denny's the other day.
Did he?
You remember I told you?
Yeah.
I was like, my dad gave me the big up. He told me he was proud of
You
me.
had a heart to heart.
I feel this.
That's
right
sweet.
Yeah.
I feel this.
Did you feel pressure along the way ever to keep it going? Like once you get to a certain level, like a couple #1 hits and TV show, is there a lot of pressure to like, okay, now I gotta what's
I'll
next?
tell you why. I know this sounds ridiculous, but I'll tell you why. Since I'm a kid, I always wanted to be in show business, right? Since I saw Singing in the Rain with Gene Kelly, I was 9 years old. I said to myself then, I don't care if I pull the curtain in a theater or work the spotlight in a theater, I will never not be in show business. So my theory was, worst that can happen to me is I pull the curtain at the theater. I'll always be in the business that I love. So I never thought about pressure to get it the next hit record. I just went and cut a record and hoped for the best. If there was ever a time I felt pressure, it's now. More now, because I'm 75 years old. I still have to work. Remember, when we had our hit records in the 70s, those acts in the 70s were in the 90% tax bracket. That means 90% of the dollar went to taxes.
So if you made $1 million back then,
Correct.
900 grand.
Yes, if you're
went
in that pay
to
category,
taxes.
yes.
That is criminal.
Yeah. So that's why
What?
you see so many people from that era working their butts off, because they weren't keeping the money that they were once the Reagan presidency came in, and it went down to 33 1/3%.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God is right. And then, listen to this: if you played London, which you had to do, because you had the British invasion, it was now one country really, musically, right?
Right.
You paid 90% taxes there, 90% taxes. So you had to have loopholes, right? So you had the traveling expenses, et cetera, but you were still up in the 90 cents on the dollar went to the U.S. government.
And then your managers and the production team.
Then you take your overhead.
everything.
Right.
You take
Oh
your
my
overhead,
gosh.
and then you go, well, what? Wait a minute.
You almost can't afford to go on the road.
I know, you're like,
So I'll
I'm
give you an
just
example.
gonna
The
stay in
house
this
that
corner
you
and walk
lived in-
back and forth.
The house that you brought up in Brentwood,
Wow, that's amazing.
we paid $425,000 for.
Yeah.
My accountant said, you can't afford this house. Get it?
That was like in 77.
Correct.
Yeah.
I said, I'm sorry. I'm buying this house. I don't care if I lose the house. I ain't working this hard and not feeling my success.
Right.
I'm going into this house. Okay. We stayed in that house till 1983.
Yep.
We sold that house in 1983 for $2.5 million.
Good for you.
From 77 to 93. Now, 83. Now, in 83, because of the Reagan presidency, the taxes was only 33 1/3%. Therefore, we made a good killing, your mother and I.
Right.
Okay. So now, that same house, you and I drive up to, and there's a guy standing out there with Franny, and there's a little guy, an Indian guy standing out there. And I said, hey, I used to live here. Oh, you Tony Orlando? He said, yeah. He goes, come, I show you what I do in my house. He did nothing. I walk into the house, oh, beautiful. Oh, yeah, beautiful. He goes, how much you pay for this house? I go, well, first let me ask you what it cost you to buy this house. He goes, 22 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
He looks at me and he goes, well, you pay for it. I said, I'm not telling you.
No.
He said, tell me. I said, nope, I'm not telling you. Nope. Because she will have a heart attack if I tell you. Like the heart attack I'm going to have right now for selling this.
Right.
Yeah, I was just telling you.
Yeah. It goes both ways.
Because both ways
10
are like,
times what I got for it, he got to sell. He bought it for 10 times.
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
So the 70s was a great part of my success of becoming known, but it wasn't a big financial success.
Right.
Because, like Natalie just said, you know, overhead, salaries, band salaries, costumes for Thelma and Joyce, on and on and on. And so now, to go back to what we were saying, in my 70s, now I feel the pressure. Why? Because casinos want younger performers. Casinos want tribute bands on New Year's Eve. They don't want to pay the money to a known act. So you got to really scrape and fight to get whatever gigs you can when you're 75.
Yeah.
That's the only time I have ever felt pressure in this business is now. In the past, I didn't care. In the past, I was grateful. In the past, I made what I made. Now, I have to make that to make up for what I didn't make those years past. Sinatra, for instance. Sinatra, you wonder, why would the Rat Pack have to work like so hard in the 80s and 90s? They were in the 90% tax bracket since the 40s.
Crazy.
I didn't even think that was a thing. 90.
So now, whoever's running for president, forget what party you're with, and you hear the word higher taxes, and you hear the word 70% or 80%, don't vote for that person.
100%.
I'll tell you why, because you're
No,
working for the
yeah.
government then.
Yeah.
You're not working for your family.
Right.
100%. Did you ever have any rituals that you would do before a show? Did you have like a 10-minute moment of silence? Did you have like a little
prayer
routine that you did? Or just like, were you superstitious at all? Did you have like...
I remember walking in circles in fear.
You just, that's
Really?
your thing?
Oh, yeah.
Just the nerves, even to this day?
Oh, if I don't
you do
have
that?
nerves, I'm done.
Yeah, it's true. That's the adrenaline rush that you get.
Now, my nerves today aren't quite the same as they were then. My nerves, right before I went on, I was very, very worried, very scared.
Even by your third show.
But I would
that night.
use it. I would use it.
Before the TV show or before like live stuff or just anything?
in general.
Anything.
Anything.
And when I was in the wings, I was a nervous wreck.
So crazy.
I get like that. If I have 2 shows a night, I get really nervous my first show. The second show, it's like muscle memory. It's just like, but the first one, I always get nervous.
Now, I don't get nervous about doing the show. I get nervous, is there anybody out there? Am I drawing?
Yeah.
Did they come to the show?
That one waiter
They
might
still
come.
come. They still come.
I would die if you just had a show just for that one waiter.
You posted
Today.
you posted a photo on Instagram a few months ago. You were back east somewhere. There must have been 10, 15,000 people
There
somewhere.
was 15,000.
Where was that? Connecticut
PNC
or?
Park. PNC.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they still come.
They still come, yeah. Sometimes I wonder, but what really gets me, Jono, is that in this business you strike up. It's the only business in the world, show business, where you can walk into a room full of strangers and leave with a whole bunch of new friends. You walk in, you don't know anybody, and then you walk out of there, I got new friends.
True.
And then everybody in that audience becomes your PR agent. That's why I don't understand some performers get nasty to their audience. Because that one person will tell in their lifetime countless amount of people how much they loved you in the show and how nice you were to them. Well, that's an automatic press agent. And I think that's what kept me working all these years.
Yeah.
Because, I haven't had a hit record since Lincoln was president. I think Lincoln was president when I had a hit. And I'm still...
Like 5 years ago, yeah.
and I'm still working, Natalie. And I really believe it's because I said thank you. And I never turned down an autograph. I was always nice to... If somebody had a family in the hospital, I said, give me the phone, call them. Those seeds,
That extra special
you
touch.
reap what you sow, right? So those seeds, you drop enough good seeds, you're going to have one hell of a beautiful forest in your lifetime. As long as the seeds are well-meaning, you're going to have flowers and trees. It's going to be beautiful. But if you don't, you're going to have a desert.
And now you're
That's
working
good
on
advice. I know.
something really cool. You wrote a Broadway play about you.
What?
I did. It's going to Broadway. It's a bit of a challenge to get a theater. We have the money. We have the script. We have our director, Michael Wilson, great director, won the Academy Award nomination, and then won a Tony for his work with Cicely Tyson. And I can't even name all the musicals he's done, but full. So we got everything in ready to go, but we need to cast a Tony. I've written 15 songs. Amazing. Aside from the hits, I've written 15 songs.
And you didn't really write songs until later in your career.
I was intimidated because of Carole King. I worked with Carole King, Burt Bacharach, Barry Mann, these people who are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they've gotten Academy Award winning movies as songwriters. And I worked with them. I was intimidated. I said, I ain't writing. Are you kidding me? I'm going to sit there and write next to Carole King? Nah. But as I got older, I didn't care. So I'm going to write. So when Bob booked the benefactor who said, I want you to do this play of your life, he's a 35-year friend of mine, very wealthy and very kind and very supportive. And I didn't think we should do a play, John. I thought everybody and his brother is going to do a Jersey Boys. We'll lose credibility because, oh, not another one, like that. So I said, look, let me write down a synopsis for myself. And if there's really worth there, I'll write a couple of songs. Well, I wrote 15. And so if you take the hits the girls and I had, plus the 15, there's your score.
Yep.
And the scenes, the songs that I wrote, as you know, you heard them, drive the scene, as they should in a Broadway show. I wanted to write a traditional Broadway show, Natalie. I didn't want to do what they call a jukebox show. Nothing wrong with that. I wanted to do more of a traditional show where there was original music as well as the hits. So, lo and behold, when the script is read back, when the music is played to it, I go, you know what? It really is a good show. Now, Broadway is a weird animal. You never know. You could have the biggest hit or the biggest bomb. and everybody goes in, sure they have a hit. Either way, I accomplished it. So I've already won. I've written a beautiful musical about my life and all the good things that's happened to me and the bad. And, you know, so here we go. We'll see what happens.
That is exciting. Congratulations. It's a big
Thank
deal.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Where did the songs come from? How did you go from not writing songs to being intimidated to all of a sudden you wrote how many is it? 14 songs, 15 songs?
15.
I've heard all of them. They're not good. They're great. Like, I'm his toughest critic.
Thank you.
Like,
yeah, you are tough.
you know, because like
He is tough.
because I just feel like someone has to be like, I just feel like someone has to be the one person that, like, you know, is gonna always tell you
And
the
John
truth.
is definitely that
And
one
I-
person.
I took that role.
Oh, look at you.
know?
Did you
Yeah.
cast him? Or you just-
And he's usually nails it every time. You know?
But they're like blown away. Like, you talked down the whole show to me from scene to scene, transition to transition, and then played me the song, and then you're like, okay, then after this song, we're gonna go to this. Here's what happens. It's a masterpiece.
I cannot wait to see this
for this to
live.
come out. It's
Well, you know, something happened in the show the other night that you were there, Ty. You remember I ad-libbed shout at the end of the show.
Yeah.
Reason I did that was, remember the girl that came with you guys, and I said she'd make a perfect Aretha Franklin.
Angela Teak.
So, the first time I ever sang Halfway to Paradise, my first record, I was being introduced to a convention of record people that works exclusively for the label I was on. The label I was on is Epic Records. I was the first pop artist to sign to Epic. Well, of course, Epic became Michael Jackson's, J-Lo's label. It became a big label, but it's the subsidiary label to Columbia Records. So the two artists that they were presenting that day was Aretha Franklin on Columbia, she was new, and myself. She sang a song called Rockabye Ya Baby as her first record, and I had to sing my first record, Halfway to Paradise. So what happens? I had to follow her. So she goes out, and I mean, Jono, she finishes this song, and it was standing people screaming, stomping, streaming. She comes off stage, and I said, Miss Franklin, I said, I can't follow you. Are you kidding? Look at these people. She goes, when in doubt, honey, take them to church. So I kind of knew what she meant, but I really didn't know. So how do I do that? So I get out there, I start my song, Halfway to Paradise. And everybody in the audience is talking to each other.
Oh.
Not paying attention, and everyone say, hey Joe, hey Bill, come on. That Aretha girl was something. And I'm going, you leave me. And I'm bombing big time. So I turn around and I see Aretha, and she gives me the sign of the cross, like this, just like that. Take him to church. I turn around to the conductor and I said, do you know Shout by the Isley Brothers? He goes, I do. What key? I said, C. He hits the C chord and I go into Shout. You know you make me want. Well, when I hit Shout, Aretha comes out on the piano and she starts doing it with me. And I go, now wait a minute. And she goes, yeah, wait a minute. And I go, oh my God. Now we're doing a duet on Shout together. And we kill this audience. And I end Shout with the Carole King song, You Leave Me Halfway to Paradise. So near, yet so far. Good night, everybody. And I walk off with Aretha. And they're going, and ladies and gentlemen, that's our new artist on Epic Records, along with Aretha Franklin. A name you'll always remember, a voice you'll never forget, Tony Orlando. Yay! And I'm going, oh my God. So I put that scene, you're the first
What
to know
a
this,
story.
in the show.
Oh.
So now that scene will be in the show with Aretha
I
and
hope
I.
so.
So when I met your friend,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I walked out and I went, I found my Aretha.
Yeah. And Angela Teak, you actually voted for on Star Search
I got
which
the
was-
winning vote. She made her $100,000.
So Natalie doesn't watch American Idol, America's Got Talent long before
No,
those
no,
shows.
no, no.
Natalie.
I never said that. American Idol, yes.
Oh, Idol you watch. Okay, so Star Search was the first American Idol,
Yes.
sort of, so to
or
speak.
the first.
Really, first America's Got Talent because it wasn't just
America's
singers.
Got Talent,
Yeah,
yeah.
because it had comedians, actors, everything. Yeah, and
Because Rosie O'Donnell won that.
right,
Yeah.
right.
As comedian.
Yeah.
But the show now. Take a moment like that people don't know about me. And you're sitting on Broadway and you watch this lady come out and do Aretha. And then I come out and that was the beginning of my career. You're going to sit up a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then I had the breakdown. Freddie Prinze dies, passes away. I make a comeback. You know, the life really did have its ups and downs, but in the end, what you leave with is I come back and do a show called Barnum on Broadway. So it goes from 10 years old to 1980. That's the length of the show. And my last words to the audience is, at that point, to be continued. So the truth is, the career did continue after that. But those were the years that really people know me. They know the TV show, they know the girls, they know the Broadway moment, they know the breakdown, they know the hits, they know the television show. All that compounds into one, hopefully, hit show.
It will.
I can't
And the name
wait.
of the
I
show
cannot wait.
is Rooftop Dreams.
Rooftop Dreams.
So before we get out of here, we are in the Trago Lounge at the Tropicana.
Yes, we are.
Tropicana's been
Beautiful
here.
here, too.
It's beautiful, right?
The Trop has been here for many, many years. Do you have any Tropicana stories? Anything? I know you never performed here, but did you ever have any? Do you have any Tropicana
do we have
history?
time? Are we-
Yeah, go. We got it.
My story about the Tropicana is a story about my wife, Franny. So, Franny and I come into the Tropicana to see, I think it was Sammy Davis, who had a TV show, believe it or not,
Oh,
in the Tropicana, or a pilot or something going on.
okay.
And we're coming out, and Franny says, "Do you have $100? I feel it in my bones."
Uh-oh. I like where this is headed.
I said, "What do you feel in your bones? Arthritis? What do you got? What do
Is
you
it raining
feel?"
outside?
She goes, "No. I want to hit the jackpot. I want to play a slot machine." I said, "Franny, listen. When we leave here, we got to get to the airport because right away we're going to go to the airport. Please don't take a long time, okay? I'll go over and have a cup of coffee in the coffee shop and wait for you." Well, 5, 10, 15 minutes go by. 20 minutes go by. Franny comes walking into the coffee shop. "I feel it in my bones. Give me 100 more." I said, "Fran."
She
come on."
lost the first 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
I said, "You lost
That's her warm-up.
She says, no, really, I'm telling you. I'm telling you, I know when this happens to me, I just know." "Okay, take the 100. And give me 25 for the guy who's holding my machine." Wait a second. You got a guy holding your machine? You're paying him $25 to hold your machine?
I like her.
I love it.
She goes, "I'm telling you, I feel it in my bones." I wait in the coffee shop. 15. Oh, we're going to miss our flight. The hell with it. My phone rings. No, she comes walking back. She comes back, waving the money like this. "I hit the jackpot, $12,500. I said, "Get over here. Right now. Come here." She goes like this. "Wait. 1, 2, there's your 200. And puts the rest in her pocket. I said, "Wait a second. There's something wrong with this picture. This is not right."
That's
"What do you
incredible.
mean? I get 200 back and you keep the
Yeah,
rest?"
there's no 50-50. You got your initial.
She felt it in her bones. Did you feel it in your bones?
Yeah. I
No.
felt
That
pain
is
in my
awesome.
bones.
She felt it. Felt
That
right.
is awesome.
That's funny.
That's
I
my
love
Tropicana story. But the Trop, let me tell you, the Trop in its day. And when you talk old school, when I walked in here, I like that old school. Don't get me wrong, I love the new hotels too. They're gorgeous and they're beautiful, and,
Yeah.
but there's something about the funkiness and just the earthiness of an old school gaming
Yeah.
hotel. This still has it.
Yeah.
And yet they're
They
adding,
renovated.
They're
Yeah.
adding beauty in here.
Yeah.
In more ways than one.
Ew.
Well, this was a lot of fun. I know.
I could just go hours listening.
You got anything
to
you want to
stories.
add?
Natalie,
No,
give me a hug.
I just want to.
Thanks for
I just want to
co-hosting
hang
so
out with
well.
you all the time and
Thanks
just hear
for
your stories.
co-hosting.
It just was like this the whole time.
Thanks for co-hosting with John. So
Oh
Yeah.
no!
Thank
I feel
you for
honored
doing
just to
this.
Be here.
This
You're
was really a
kidding.
lot of
Any-
fun.
any-
Anytime.
you.
I didn't feel weird either. It felt good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good
it was
energy,
good.
right?
Good, because you're coming back again.
I
Yeah.
hope
Yeah,
so.
more stories.
Ty, on the next podcast, if it's okay with the hosts, I'd like to have you sit with us.
I like
and
it.
And you add some of your stories.
All
That'd be
right,
cool?
Done deal.
Done.
The next time we have Dad on the show, Ty is jumping in front
Yes,
of the
sir.
camera, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye,
Vegas
guys.
Junkeez.
I love Vegas Junkeez.
Good. That was good stuff.
You know what I'm telling? You know what I told John? I would love to be able to go to Barnes and Noble and see a whole shelf of Junkeez books, like Food Junkies,
Movie
Baseball
junkies,
Junkies,
Yeah.
everything
Movie
junkies.
junkies.
Yeah.
Junkies brand.
Gaming,
I love it.
Gambling Junkies.
I'm in.
You know what was the name of that whole line of books that?
For dummies?
Something for dummies.